Now, we all know that learning about different faiths, ethnicities and cultures at school is important for children to grow up into well-rounded adults. But just how non-partisan is the current curriculum? Don't Divide Us believes in colourblind anti-racism, meaning we should treat everyone as an individual worthy of respect, regardless of race, religion or the colour of their skin. And the campaign group has just released its latest report on anti-racist training in education and schools, and its director, Alka Sehgal Cuthbert, joins us now. Alka, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Andy.
So, as part, you're director of Don't Divide Us, and just before we begin, just tell us what Don't Divide Us is all about.
OK, we're a grassroots organisation. We sprung up, if you like, in the wake of the summer of 2020, after the BLM protests. And basically, we want to present a common-sense voice on race, by which I mean we want to push back against kind of three main ideas that really come from critical race theory, even if they don't say that they are. And
yes,
those three ideas are: Britain is an institutionally racist country. We don't believe that. There's no conclusive proof of that. That white people have privilege, similar, no conclusive proof, it's an assertion. And the third one is that people like me, non-white people, need people like you to make space for us to succeed.
Yes.
Because of the kind of inbuilt oppressive relationship, which we don't believe either.
So those are the premises, and of course you've been focusing as part of this on education.
Yes.
Because for a while now, and particularly since George Floyd, a lot of schools have been implementing critical race theory, as you say, not calling it critical race theory because they want to get around that.
Yeah.
And this has actually proved to be hugely racially divisive. But your report has sort of revealed the extent of this, is that right?
Well, that's right, because I think what's tended to happen is that, you know, the public discourse picks on the most egregious cases, similar with the trans ideology in schools as well. But there's a much more long-standing problem, and also it's not just a question of a few dodgy lessons. Through looking more closely at the way these third-party organisations work, the scope of their work, the kind of provision they're offering, the relationships they have with each other and with other established organisations, they form a kind of self-legitimising network in a way.
And these are groups that come into schools to give lectures and workshops and that kind of thing.
They come in, they provide lessons for assemblies or lessons under the umbrella of EDI, Equity, Diversity and Inclusion, but they also provide things like one company, for example, Flair, will go into a school and provide a bespoke course of training for staff and pupils that could last 1 to 2 years.
Right.
And it involves monitoring through you know, sort of online quizzes.
Yes.
We don't know what happens with that data, by the way.
OK.
So some of it is really intrusive, and others will just do a one-off lesson. But they also provide professional development for teachers. They provide reading lists. They provide directories of personnel, of staff.
But they're all coming from the same ideological viewpoint.
Yeah.
It's a bit reminiscent of figures like Robin DiAngelo in America going into corporations to berate white members of staff for being... I mean, she says you should try to be less white. I don't know how you do that. But the fact that this is happening in schools, you effectively get these ideologues coming into schools teaching highly contested theories as though they are fact.
They're not only teaching partisan political ideas as fact, they're actually also changing the ethos of the school, that is the practice, the rules of practice. So, you know, since when has any school in Britain thought it was a good idea to segregate the pupils according to colour and take one lot off to discuss their racial identity,
yes,
and another lot off to discuss their racial guilt? And
people will say that that's not happening. I know teachers that it's happened too. So it is definitely happening.
It is happening. And I mean, the people, you know, the kind of naysayers who say, well, it isn't happening everywhere. Where's your proof? Where are the numbers? You know, you just have to use a little bit of logical inference to ask yourself, where is the opposition? Who is opposing this?
Yes.
There is no one, from Gillian Keegan down to local authorities, who is even questioning this. You know, there's silence.
And there is evidence. I mean, we've seen the Brighton Council's anti-racist school strategy, which is pure critical race theory, even though they don't use the phrase in the document. You know, it is being applied.
Yes.
Teachers, there's all sorts of testimony from teachers about training courses they've had to go on to challenge their own whiteness and this kind of thing. Now, what happens when schools become ideological? I mean, is that What happens to kids in that situation?
Well, what happens to kids, I mean, for example, what you're getting is a very, either a sloppy or a intentional misuse of the Equality Act to provide positive action. So,
yes.
for example, one school is paying for black kids to have supplementary Saturday lessons, but nobody else, even though actually in that school it's the white Roma pupil that does worse.
So it's not even the worst worst performing pupils that are benefiting?
The point about this is it is just so intellectually and educationally illiterate. It is, you know, if any child is doing bad at any subject at school, whatever their colour, what they need is a teacher with better subject knowledge, disciplinary knowledge, patience, and you know, freedom to try different approaches. They do not need to have their racial identity cultivated. It's a non sequitur. There's no link.
And
you know,
so now that Don't Divide Us has produced this report, and it's not the first report that you've done into schools,
it's the second, yeah.
And you've issued freedom of information requests. You know it's going on. You've got the evidence. You've got the testimonies. What do you hope will happen with this information now?
What we want to do is, it's all feeding into our campaign. We have a petition running alongside that we wish to present to the government in autumn. Please, everybody, if you think schools should be educating and not indoctrinating, go to our website, sign our petition. We want to get our second report out there as widely as possible. We would like the Department of Education to read it. We would like Gillian Keegan to read it. And most importantly, I think, we want head teachers and senior leadership to read it, because they're the ones
yes.
who are on the front line, who are deciding yay or nay to having the third parties in. And we want to kind of raise the alarm and start that conversation.
Well, very important people sign the petition. So that's at the Don't Divide Us website.
That's right, yes, DontDivideUs.com.
DontDivideUs.com. Alka, thanks so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.